I want to give some of my thoughts about this kind of gameplay because, okay, I'll do the single player and then I'll do the multiplayer. Because from the single player perspective, I feel very much so like this is more of an RTS that's about just kind of enjoying yourself, right? You just get to watch cool, sweet mechs go around, blow shit up. There's a lot of what I will call, on one level, intuitive, like units that are bad against armored units are actually really bad against armored units. And ones that are really good are really, really good against it. And you can load up into the structures and you can shoot from the structures. Things like this. There's a lot of kind of like basics in there that I feel like are easy to sort of conceptually glom onto. But I feel like that realism comes at a bit of a cost to someone who plays more of the... I almost want to say that a lot of modern RTS, they're very RPG influenced. Because, the RPG... or I should say, they're very action RPG influenced. Because when I say that, I'm talking about like the, okay, against these types of units, you want to deal fire damage, which will deal bonus damage, and if you can get this ability off, it'll proc your other thing, which heals, and so on and so forth. And that's very Dota, that's very War 3, that's very StarCraft in nature. A lot of those axes are just gone, and it's just like, I am an armored unit or an infantry unit, and units are anti-infantry or anti-armor. And it's like a very flat sort of dynamic. But, I mean, from a single-player experience type perspective, I talked about this a lot when I played Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3, that it's kind of fun to just build shit up and wander around and have a little adventure and to have a little experience. And I think that what this game does really, really well is it creates that interesting little grounded battle. And when I say grounded, I mean like you're around trees and there's walls and there's farmhouses and farmlands and yada, yada, yada. Co Crunch says, man, I was thinking of trying this game tonight at the perfect time. Good to see you, Co. We just stopped playing. But let me give you the evaluation. You can go back and watch my A+ commentary and even my multiplayer. So I did enjoy, when I was playing the campaign, the fact that it reminds me a lot of like miniatures. And I don't mean like Warhammer 40k, like battling miniatures. I mean like actual proper like military miniature terrain construction kind of miniature feeling, which is actually pretty satisfying. I think that when it comes in for the when it comes to the actual campaign levels, one thing that's kind of cool is that it has a very epic, big feel to all the missions, and it's very, very seamless with just sending you into the next mission, sending you into the next, and so on and so forth. And I really like that, because, I mean, the Star 2 campaign was like, you choose Wings of Liberty from a menu, you go to the sort of sub-menu, which is a ship, you pick a very clear UI listing of missions, you click on it, and it goes into the mission, you play it. This is just like going through, which felt nice, but it just felt like the growth in terms of my capability was very low. Like, the very first mission, I have riflemen taking cover. And then after that, I have, like, riflemen taking cover, and then I have some anti-armor things taking cover. And then I get one gunner. And this is, like, 25 minutes of gameplay of me just moving around with gunners and doing stuff. And then I get some mechs, and move around a little bit of mechs, another 15 minutes passes. Like, the increase in pace to that experience felt slow, but, you know, whatever. I can imagine sort of grinding out some. I think the biggest thing that hit me in the campaign was just the controls. It just doesn't register clicks. It doesn't register them. If you do a keyboard click and a mouse click, it just doesn't register the mouse click. So lots and lots of times, you know, units are just like kind of wandering around. And you heard me say a lot of times, where are my units? Because I would go, this unit is here. And like a command would drop. And I'd be like, wow! Ah! And then I have to use a little hotbar on the bottom, which helped me identify them eventually. But I was sort of just finding units all over the place. Now, I think from a multiplayer perspective, this is a type of RTS game that is literally Company of Heroes. I was not expecting it to be as Company of Heroes as it wound up being, but I mean, it's Company of Heroes, just through and through. And, I almost feel like it is anti-design. Is this too... I feel like that's just too harsh of a word, and it's not communicating what I want to say, but, like... I know that there are big fans of Supreme Commander. or not Supreme Commander, excuse me, Company of Heroes. I know, for instance, the StarCraft player Huck was a big Company of Heroes player. I remember when the StarCraft 2 beta came up, and Huck streamed a lot, and then it went down before release. Huck streamed a bunch of Company of Heroes in between then. I remember I wound up seeing that. But with Company of Heroes, you saw that the way the game works is there's, we'll say, 12 points of interest. Some are resources, some literally give you victory points. Now, let's just call them 12 objectives. Let's ignore which one are the victory points and ignore which one are the resources. We're just going to call them objectives. You can send any infantry to any one objective, and now you're taking that objective. So, if I have 2 units at the start of the game, which I do, I now want to get this one and that one. And then, once I get 3 units, I want to get 3 things. Once I get 4 units, I want to get 4 things. And so it's... You wind up just constantly spreading as much as humanly possible, but there's not even really a punishment to capturing an objective. Because if you capture it, and then your opponent captures it later, no harm, no foul, right? It's not like if you build a base in StarCraft, and then someone attacks and kills it, you lose all those workers, all the resources for the Nexus, all the resources for the stuff that you defended. Ooh, that's bad. I mean... In this game, you capture a point, and then you run away, and that's basically a free game. And I feel like it winds up disproportionately being about multitasking and not fighting. It winds up being about not fighting. Because you're not supposed to fight. It doesn't fucking matter. Right? Like, my opponent sent a bunch of stuff to capture my stuff, and I was like, alright, I'm going to send stuff over here to capture this stuff. And what it winds up feeling to me is that it's this giant... sort of morass of randomness. Everything's constantly fluctuating and changing and shifting and twisting and turning. And I as fragile as StarCraft is, if I ignore the fragility aspect, I like that you have 1 base, and then you have 2, and then after you work a little bit more, now we have 3. And guess what? It's time for base 4. You get this kind of slow growing shape that I feel like gives me clarity of focus. As opposed to, I have, like, you remember in the first game, I had, like, all the objectives but 1. All the objectives but 2. I just, like, moved around and took everything. And that was that. And even in that first game that I won, I mean, it's like, I wasn't even looking at fights. I was not even looking at fights. And when I talk about anti-design, you know, I feel like Purified 100 just has the perfect timing with the transition. The retreat function, so here's how retreat works. I didn't realize retreat was in this game, because in the single-player campaign, I never got to the base building. I just, like, gave up and was like, alright, sweet, let's go to multiplayer. But the way the retreat function works is when you build a squad, you have, like, 5 nerds in it. And then let's say you lose some of those nerds. You can hit the retreat button, and with a faster speed than they normally move, the remaining units will retreat back home, where you can then replenish them back to the full 5. And the idea is that this is a way to give you an easy retreat opportunity. You know, in a game like StarCraft 1, lurkers burrow, siege tanks siege up. So to retreat, you just move. There's no sort of like button that you press for it. But, you know, in order to sort of guarantee that all your units can get up, there's the retreat button, which, on one hand, why would you want to put the retreat button in a game at all? What would make you invent this? Because if you've ever played StarCraft 2, and you are running away as Protoss against a Marine Marauder medevac army, it moves so fast that it just shits on everything, and you go, couldn't I just get away? And then you're given the recall button in Legacy of the Void. And you're like, yay, I can recall my army back home. Woohoo, yeah. And then at one point in time, you don't have recall, and you want to scream because it just shits on your stuff so badly, right? So I can understand from a design standpoint someone going, you know, it really sucks to just like that snowballing effect. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just retreat and kind of rebuild and things are evened out? Great. That makes sense, right? There is a good logic to that. I will just note, though, that the problem, if you are having 12 objectives, where it's penalty-less to sneak around and take one, if you have retreat options, which greatly mitigate the, the falling behind aspect, and if you are also putting caps on like unit growth in all sorts of ways to kind of keep things contained. It winds up being all these influences that force you into a situation of not engaging and not watching the fights. And I think that there's like a real beautiful clarity to a lot of StarCraft fights, even though I think like StarCraft 2 I especially think is like really, really fast in the way the fights evolve. But it's like, here's my army and here's their army, and this is the conflict that we care about. Both those games that I just played, and also when I played Company Heroes, I just kind of felt like just moving everywhere. Just like, uh-oh, here comes the attack here. Go to this side. Oh, the attack's coming here, and oh, go to this side. And the victory points, I have mixed feelings about the way that victory points work. Now that let's separate the objectives into the victory points and the resources. So the victory points, for any of you that didn't know why it just said victory. In a game like StarCraft, the literal win condition is destroy all buildings. Nobody thinks this way. No one kills off a supply depot and goes, hell yeah, 17 more buildings to go. The way that you win at StarCraft is to instill your opponent with despair, and they go, I'm fucked, and then they leave the game, right? So it's you lose a big fight, and then you leave the game. You lose all the workers in one base, you leave the game. This is how StarCraft games are decided. So with the victory points, and there's been a number of games to do systems like this, the fun part is the fighting. But then there's like a system of points somewhere else that's the goal. Counter-Strike is the perfect example. The fun of aiming and shooting, throwing grenades, breaking positions, that's the gameplay. But you're trying to win points by winning a round. And you don't even have to win via shooting. You just literally score the point and win the round. So the way that victory points work is if I'm holding this one position, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's like let's just imagine you get like 1 point per second that you hold an objective, or 1 point per 5 seconds that you hold one of these victory point things. And whoever gets to 500 points wins. So one of the ways in which I like this is it actually gives you a sense of what the game's status is. If any of you have ever played StarCraft, tell me this hasn't happened to you. You're playing StarCraft. You're stressed. You know you're going to lose. Oh, God. Oh, he's just been hitting me here, hitting me there. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to take one final attempt and hope to win. You attack, and then you win the game. First of all, you're surprised. Second of all, you feel relief. Third of all, you start to feel happy, but mostly you feel relief. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm talking about? And then you go back and look at the replay and discover, and here's the important part, you discover that you were winning the whole time. Yeah, the Zerg player had 24 Mutalisks giving you hell, but you were ahead by 60 supply and like 2 bases the whole game. They were screwed. And the point I'm trying to make here is that you had an emotional experience where you were going, I'm having a really hard time, I'm losing, oh God, I really hope I win, and then you win, but then there's the actuality of the experience, which is that you were winning the whole time. When you have a number to look at, like how many towers are left in Dota, how many people are left alive in the Battle Royale, how many victory points I have in this game of Iron Harvest or Company Heroes, that point thing can make you just look and go, oh, like, because I remember I was like, well, I'm fucked. And then I looked and the score was like 418 to 20. And I went, oh, I'm actually really far ahead. Really, really nice way to clue me in. So that aspect I do like. But I think that the problem that I had in Company of Heroes as well as in this is it creates this excessive focus on just like this, and this, and that's all. I'm never going to scout their base. I'm never going to go to their base. I might try to do these weird little harassy things on the sides, but there's something I find so anticlimactic of like battling happening all over the place and then a number just surges past a certain thing. Even something like Age of Empires, which it does not have like a victory point system. You're actually just trying to wipe your opponent out. I feel like there's that really nice sensation of like, I'm trying to control this area and there's a battle over the area, and then you get control of the area and you're like, yeah, and then you pretty much hold it, and they have a castle and you're trying to just batter down that castle, and even though there's not literal points, that castle is the point of focus. And maybe this castle over here is the point of focus. And if my castle here falls first, I'm fucked. And if their castle here falls first, they're fucked. It's like a centralizing thing, and then you finally knock it down, send in the floodgates of units, and then the game's over. Like there's that climactic thing that occurs. And what I don't know what I was feeling a lot with the victory points is I just kind of have this I have this like I'm doing random stuff all over the place fighting and then done. And I almost feel like I don't know if any of you have ever had power outages. Obviously, I've talked about it growing up in Kansas with snowstorms causing power outages, wind storms knocking over trees and power lines in the summer, good old-fashioned thunderstorms just striking a power line and it goes down. But there's that feeling of you're playing on your computer and the power just goes off and you're like, and you see that horrifying reflection of yourself in your now blackened monitor and you're like, that's my posture. You know, one of those things? That's what winning in this game felt like. I'm just like sitting there playing and it's just like victory, and I'm like, very well. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, I really, really do not like the Company of Heroes style 15 equally distributed objectives around the map, some resource, some victory point. I'm just not a fan of it. I think of all the RTS games I've played this year, since we've been doing the good old variety, I mean, AoE 2 is just fucking sick, man. That game is awesome. That game is rad.